We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
Welcome to the DotCast from NineDots. NineDots is the online learning community for wedding photographers. You can become a member and find out about our annual conference, the NineDots Gathering, at nine-dots.co.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the NineDots DotCast. My name is Adam Johnson, and today it's me and Andy Gaines. And
Hey.
And also Rahul Khona.
Yo.
So, Andy.
Hey, Adam.
What do you want to talk about today?
Well, I'm quite inspired to talking about money because I love it so much. Or not so much money, more pricing in wedding photography. It's something that seems to crop up all the time. When you're talking to other photographers, when you're asking them what they want to improve and achieve, it's often to charge more. I think generally just pricing and also specifically that the idea of people being undercut by other people being cheaper, and is that okay? And how do we sort that out? And what's the kind of general feeling of that in the wedding industry?
Nice. All right. Sounds like you know what you want to talk about.
No more than normal.
Yeah. Yeah. So where do we start with that? So price. I mean, it's always that tricky thing. I know you've always had the most basic view ever of how to decide what you charge in wedding photography is you just decide what you charge.
Right. I mean, and that's true. I mean, I think at the most basic level, we all are just charging what we think we can get away with charging, irrespective of how, you're structuring your packages or how you're structuring what you offer or whether you're, selling by the hour, whatever it is, however you're selling it. I believe we're all really just charging what we think we can get away with, right? And so I think the problem with that is that what someone can get away with at one point, they can't necessarily get away with in a year's time or whatever, due to circumstances beyond their control. And I guess the interesting thing is that their fault or problem, or is that someone else's fault and problem? I mean, I think for me, a really good example of that is when we kind of started shooting maybe a few years ago, there were certain people at the top of the industry who were charging a lot of money. And we're in a really kind of niche group of kind of people pushing the boundaries of wedding photography and charging appropriately because of that. And then now I think a lot of those people maybe are struggling to charge that kind of money because of, people like us came along and undercut them. And now we're in their position and people are coming along and undercutting us. And is that a problem? Is that something that, do you worry about that?
No, I think it's kind of it's a bit of a cycle, but also, like you said, when we first started, we had to start somewhere to build a portfolio and build a name. And so I know I came in way cheaper than probably some of the top photographers in my area. But then slowly, I guess I realized that, okay, I'm getting a fair few bookings, and then you kind of start putting your prices up. And then there's always going to be people that come in at a cheaper level, because there's no real barrier to entry, right? Anyone with two cameras or even one camera can go around saying they're a wedding photographer and start charging 50 quid a wedding. And,
yeah, right.
Why not? If they think they can make money from that, then all good for them.
Yeah. So what do you think are the sort of the more established photographers then that are blaming those people for kind of killing their business? If they can't charge the money they wanted to charge or think they should be charging because there's other people doing it on the cheap. Because I always struggle with that, because I think, well, it's your problem, right? If you can't persuade these people to book you at let's say $10,000 or pounds or whatever over the person that's charging 1,000, then you're clearly not worth that. But then if you were worth it last year, are you not? How do you define the worth of your work? Do you know what I mean?
Well,
yeah,
go on.
No, you go, dude.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, well, like you said, with whatever you can kind of get away with charging, if you're $10,000 and then 2 years later people come in at $2,000, you still have to be able to show your worth or prove why you are worth $10,000 over the 2,000. Whatever your marketing or business strategy was, might have to change a bit, because you might have to explain a few more things, and it might not be as an easy ride anymore. For sure. But you still got to show them your value, show them your worth, show them why you are $10,000 over this $2,000 photographer or whatever it is.
Yeah, right. Dude, why are we talking in dollars? Where's the
Yeah.
Where's the dollars come from?
I was trying to sound international. I was trying to sound, global.
Well, I charged 3 million drachma.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm still charging old Italian lira.
Yeah, lira. Yeah. I'm going to go in pesetas this year. Yeah. No, but I mean, it's true, isn't it? I mean, the whole thing about pricing is there's so much psychology involved in pricing that it's not as simple as saying, you've got. I mean, yeah, I agree with what Rahul's saying. You're like, whatever you're charging, you've got to kind of justify why you're charging that. And in some way or another, you can't just stand next to everybody else and go, I take pictures, I'm 3,000, and the guy next to you goes, I take pictures, I'm 1,000. Because if that's all it's based on, then yeah, the 1,000 guy is going to clean up, and you're going to struggle. But at the same time, I was watching Michael McIntyre the other day. This is relevant, and he was talking about people who shop at Waitrose and how basically they are basically choosing to spend more money on the same stuff that you can buy at other supermarkets for cheaper because of the I don't know, they enjoy the expensiveness of Waitrose in some weird way. So I don't know how that works in the example of wedding photography, but at the same time, there's if you're a more expensive wedding photographer, that the fact you're more expensive, the fact you have placed that price tag on yourself does in a way convey a lot of confidence that you have in your own product. So there's something I don't know.
It's like an intangible, right? That you don't know that you're worth more just because, well, he must be worth more because you say you are. So therefore there must be more value in the things that I'm going to get from you, even though the can of beans is going to be the same as the one from Netto. Yeah,
but like the Michael McIntyre joke was basically that people walk around like making a big thing, like making it really well known that they shop at Waitrose. Yeah, I got to stop on the way home at Waitrose to get whatever because it's almost like a badge of honor that they're spending more money on their food. But it's more, I guess it's more like, if who was it, John Lewis, that used to have the catchphrase "reassuringly expensive" or something like that. There is a reassurance in charging more money. Definitely, that comes across. So, just to go back to, I mean, you asked the question you asked was what we think about people who undercut the market, or if that's even such a thing. But if you're getting peed off about that, then in reality, that's your problem because that means you're insecure in your own business and product.
Mm-hmm. I mean, is it just that it's tough luck to those people who have been around a long time and can no longer charge what they used to charge because they perceive that they're being undercut, so that business they would have won 5 years ago or 4 or 3 years ago, they're now not winning because they perceive the only reason for that is that someone else is offering a product which for cheaper. So is that just their lookout in effect? It's like it's just tough luck to them. Is that the answer?
No, I mean, well, sometimes, but I mean, it's not really like tough luck to them. It's the people. I think the people that complain about other people undercutting them is because the people that have been earning the money at the top or whatever, a lot of them just get complacent. So what they used to just have like maybe one phone call or one meetup and be like, yeah, I'm going to charge you £10,000. And then now they're going to have to work harder to justify why they're worth 10,000 because they're going to have to educate their clients in the sense that some clients, like I did a wedding fair like 5 years ago, 6 years ago when I first started. And I was like, I think $2,500 at that point or something, or $2,000. But then they put us in an aisle with in this wedding show with like 5 other photographers. So basically all the photographers were next to each other. And so many clients would just come around and they wouldn't understand why am I more expensive than the person just across the way from me, like literally 2 meters away. So then it's really hard to like explain to these people without sort of slagging the other people off of like why you should spend your money with me, if that makes sense. Yeah, because like you don't want to sound arrogant and you don't want to sound rude and you don't want to disrespect someone, because maybe they're like their costs or their living costs or whatever, and they're happy with what they're charging, so they think they're getting away with a lot, whereas I'm thinking you're not getting away with a lot. Maybe you could be worth more, but that's not my place to say that to you. Do you know what I mean?
That's what I mean there. But that's why when I think about this, it's like it feels that the pricing is even more arbitrary, because the only reason the guy's charging £10,000 at one time is because he can afford to charge that, and the moment people are undercutting him, he's not worth that money. You know what I mean? Like so was he ever worth that money, and what justified him being worth that money in the first place? Because the work is the same. So it's almost like the work is irrelevant, and it's all just a relative thing, right, to whatever else is going on, which then makes you think, man, does that mean that your price is not even, it's totally driven by the market and has got almost no, you know what I mean? How much in control are we of how much we can charge?
A fair bit, in my opinion. I mean, like you said in the beginning, it's whatever you can get away with. So like, for me, for example, every time I book 10 weddings, I increase my prices slightly. And then if I get away with it over the next set of inquiries, then it becomes that price I'll do it until I stop getting away with it, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, for
Like
sure.
I'll just keep going. And then if I do hit that 10 grand a wedding mark, I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm 10 grand a wedding now.
Yeah.
Until
you're not.
Until I'm not. Yeah. If people
Yeah,
keep still booking me, then, I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
And I'll keep increasing my prices, because then it also means like, it's not just a case of like increasing your prices, but it means that I can actually, I'll probably dedicate even more time towards that client. And I know that I could be doing more things, but when you're doing like 25 weddings a year, as opposed to 15 weddings a year, or as opposed to 10 weddings per year, you can dedicate way more time on like all across the board, from like the initial client meeting to like everything,
to give them that Waitrose experience.
Yeah. By the way, I disagree with Michael McIntyre, because the tomatoes in Waitrose taste way better than they do in Morrison's, and Morrison's is closer, but I will go to Waitrose.
Pure psychology, dude. It's pure psychology.
It's not, dude. It's not. I could even do a blind test on it. We'll do it one day, and I'll point out Waitrose tomatoes over.
Can we get like taster vision in the DotCast, so that we can
something?
How do we transmit that?
Yeah, how are we going to get that across?
Yeah, the DotCast live.
Yeah,
exactly. No, but I mean, it is. I mean, it sounds obvious to say, but it's a total numbers game, isn't it? Pricing, but but no, I mean, on the one hand, like, yeah, and it's cool actually, because it goes back to what you and me were talking about, Andy, on a DotCast a bit ago while Rahul was away. The whole game of business. Mm-hmm. You are constantly trying to push your price, and it's funny talking about it in a way that we're trying to get away with as much as we can charge, but no one's going to pay for something if they think it's too much money. So you can only charge what you can charge in a weird way. But at the same time, Rahul talking about that wedding fair with the lineup of photographers ranging probably from 500 quid up to whatever he was charging, £2,000, £2,500. That's where sales comes in. So this is why I think that this is the biggest change, I think, in the wedding photography industry in the last year or two, is people have been like, oh, we have to sell our product. I've never had to do this before. I've never had to say why my product is worth this. But and that's so. I mean, I don't remember ever having to sell my product in the. I mean, I've always been quite good at marketing, but in writing words around what my products and stuff. But
like being an actual salesperson is a whole new skill, right?
A whole new skill,
and
that's the skill that is suddenly, you need that more than ever in this industry now. But I don't think that's because suddenly there's like the bottom end of the industry in terms of price is flooded with the new people. I'm sure there are more people in the industry than there were before, but I don't think it's any more competitive in the numbers game. I just think it's more competitive in that cameras are better. It's actually easier to take better pictures these days, and and because of that, the average standard of the industry has increased massively.
Yeah.
And partly thanks to things like NineDots and the abundance of workshops and learning opportunities.
Presets, yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think as like building on that, it's like a few years ago, like it's all about wedding photography was modern wedding photography was in its infancy, right? But now it's been around enough that it's been through lots of styles and changes, and what's in and what's not in, and what people want and what they don't want. So it's kind of like it feels a bit like, well, this is a topic for another time, but have we exhausted the iterations of what wedding photography can be?
No
know
way.
What I mean? Well, but what I mean by that is that the reason that a lot of these people say these big names when this new style of wedding photography came in, say 8-9 years ago.
I get what your point. Yeah,
the industry, when they were there, they were occupying that kind of little like fuzzy white space at the head of that. And there was no one else doing what they were doing. And so because of that, when you're the only guy in the world who is creating a look and, images with a certain look and with a certain feel and with a certain message, you can charge £10,000 because you can't get it elsewhere in the planet. Whereas fast forward 5 years, everyone has worked out either by the hard work themselves or by being taught it through workshops or whatever, how to do that, so now everybody can offer in effect the same images that look the same with the same message. So like you say, the person that was there at first, the novelty value that they had is gone, and so as a consequence, they aren't worth what they used to be. What they used to be worth, because there's 1,000 other options to choose from. So there, it has changed, and I guess what you need to do is you need to be able to. You can only keep reinventing it so many times before you run out of things to reinvent that people want to buy.
This is like totally tangent topic now, but I feel like it's going back in a cycle where a lot of people that inquire with me, they care more about portraits now suddenly. I mean, maybe because of like Instagram or something like that, but like, like having like these sort of editorial portraits and whatnot, like I think it's all like a cycle. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, but that's because of the sheep mentality of the wedding photographer, in that, if the industry suddenly starts saying it's all about moments, it's all about documentary, the whole industry will, like sheep, will rush to that like whatever's the in thing to do in wedding photography. That was the thing. I remember 4 years ago, suddenly everybody was like, portraits are meaningless. It's all about moments. So it's no surprise really that in the last 4 or 5 years, there's been such, I don't know, an explosion of documentary photographers, because the sheep mentality of the industry has sent it in that direction. And then a bit like what Andy's saying, really, the market is going to always look for something different. So if like you were saying, what we call modern wedding photography now, it's just wedding photography now. Really what we refer to as modern wedding photography is the new traditional wedding photography in a way. There is going to be the next thing, but then the sheep mentality will come back into play, and everyone will go over there. So if suddenly it seems like, clients want portraits again, lo and behold, 90% of the industry will rush over that side. So it's just this constant back and forth. But going back to the whole pricings and numbers game thing, I have like a major issue, because the thing is, there's a lot of good photographers around now. I see so many photographers, I think, there's so many people who are good at this. But the one kind of cliche line that I hate hearing is, "Oh, you're too cheap." Like, you're so good, you're too cheap.
Yeah.
Because you have no idea what is going on in that person's business.
Yeah.
So going back to the whole numbers game thing, if I'm getting 1,000 inquiries a year, and I'm booking my 20, 30, whatever my target of weddings is, if I'm booking my weddings really easily, in way ahead of time, then yeah, realistically I'm too cheap, because I'm losing the numbers game. I'm missing the point of the numbers game. I'm getting so many inquiries that I can afford, as you were alluding to before, I can afford to try a higher price, because I'm getting those inquiries in. Mm-hmm. If I tell you you're too cheap and you're getting 7 inquiries a year, as a ridiculously low example, you need to book all 7 of those. Realistically, to keep your business going, you need to book all your inquiries. Mm-hmm. Whereas I'm the guy, getting hundreds of inquiries a year. I can afford to take more risks, I guess, with my pricing.
Yeah.
So
sure.
There's a lot that goes into like how you decide. And also going back to what you said really early on, when I remember when I was on the way up in terms of pricing, I would look at the people in my area who I thought were the best people in my area and go, well, they're the best ones.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous, because again, if I might be getting more inquiries than them, so I can afford to take more risks with my pricing.
Mm-hmm. And you again, and even on top of that, you've got like, who knows what your overheads are, who knows what your general, your general living costs are. They're all different, right? So
yeah,
and surely all those things play. I mean, the thing like what you said about you're too cheap is like, yeah, it's one of the worst cliches ever, because I think a lot of the time expensive photographers tell other photographers they're too cheap is because they know they have to be more expensive to justify their own prices.
So true.
Because if someone else is running a business that offers the same service as me, that makes pictures as good as mine, and that is in every conceivable way equivalent to me in terms of what they can offer a client, and they're charging half of what I am, of course it's going to be in my interest to tell them they're too cheap, because otherwise I have to reduce my prices, because I don't have, if I run out of the skills and the skill set to be able to sell myself at an expensive price, then it's not them that's too cheap, it's me that's too expensive,
Yeah, and also there's so much that goes into it that we can talk about for hours probably, but the other thing that makes a huge difference is the source of those inquiries. Like, I think you'll be able to say, if you're getting a lot of your inquiries through SEO, for instance, my view is that has a much lower ceiling price than if you were getting a lot of your inquiries through wedding planners or through, other sources, or well, wedding planners, referrals or anything. I think something like SEO has the lowest ceiling price of all. Or if you're getting it, for instance, through like the more high-end wedding blogs or planners, then you'll be able to set a higher price because of the source of your inquiries. It's all like these mini industries within the industry,
right?
So that are going to be able to dictate how much you can actually charge. But like you said, there's so much more that goes into it behind the scenes that I hate hearing that line of "you're too cheap."
Yeah, it's such just because on the surface you just see a number on a website.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It's like accompanied by your work's so much better than that. Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah. So what was your original question? Like, are people who come into the industry and charge cheap destroying the industry? Is that what?
I mean, that wasn't the question, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing you keep seeing, time and time again from other people suggesting that. And for me, like we've just said, I'm not sure it's as simple and it's not as black and white as that for sure. I think I guess what I try and keep in mind in terms of like how you deal with that is you just got to be fluid. And we talked about it before in another podcast. You just got to be able to be willing to push that price up if you can think you get away with it, but just be willing to bring it back down when you can't,
Yeah, totally.
I mean, again, there's a whole other discussion about, do you show your prices or do you not show your prices on your website? But linked to that, one of the advantages of not showing your prices allows you that fluidity to push things up and take things down and totally mix it up and deal with the continually changing industry, I guess, which is always changing and it's going to affect that.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about taking risks, which is what you were saying before, like once you get, like, for me, for example, once I hit a certain number of weddings per year, then I'll start taking risks on, like, I'll have exactly the same pricing guide, but with all the prices inflated. And then I'm willing to risk like losing the next 10 inquiries to "you're too expensive," just to see whether I can get away with it. But if one person bites, then I'll stick with that price. Like, unless there's like a date, I don't know, like March, April, where I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get booked or whatever. So then I'll just send them my older pricing guide. So I always have two, and I always just like fluctuate between them. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a bit like what you're saying as well, though. It's risk on the one hand, yeah, but it's a calculated, educated risk. You're not just going. Somebody hasn't just come along to you and said, "Oh, you're too cheap," so the next day you just put your price up because of that, and then you sit there and you're still not getting any inquiries and I'm not getting any bookings. You're taking that risk because of a position of comfort, I guess.
Knowing your numbers.
Yeah. And knowing your numbers and knowing that you've got that buffer, almost like a buffer, like you can afford, like you say, to take on 10 inquiries and try it. But is it you, Rahul, as that kind of strategy as well, where you'll send, if you want to test a higher price, for instance, you'll just send, even if you're already booked for the date, you will send them your higher price, and then you'll see whether they would have come back and booked at the higher price.
Yeah, I do that.
Yes, same dude.
I do that.
Good tip.
And yeah, that one is a good one. It's annoying, especially like once I sent out to like 6 inquiries and 2 came back. We're like, yeah, and I was like, oh yeah, actually I've just booked a wedding, so unfortunately I'm booked now. But yeah, it's a really good way. So that's like kind of doing it with like minimal risk.
Yeah, zero risk really.
Yeah, well, zero risk. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. At least you get to see whether your potential clients would have actually paid that for you.
But just to be clear, just to be clear though, you would never cancel the original booking to take the higher price booking. It's purely a market test and confidence.
Yeah, confidence. That's what it is, because that's what so much of it is. It's like, how much can you get away with, really? Like I said, like we said at the beginning, it is like, I think that's what it all comes down to. And I guess just almost to sort of think about wrapping it up, it's like, I guess the answer to that original question about those people, that were once charging lots and now can't afford to, like, it's because they can't get away with it anymore. And they've got to really ask themselves, I think, more than, it's almost like you can't blame the market for coming in and quote unquote ruining your pricing any more than you could blame the lack of market at the start for the reason you charged more. Do you know what I mean? It's like the only reason you could get away with charging loads at the start is because of how the market existed. And now the market changes. Like you can't blame it any more than you can, accept that it was the thing that allowed you to charge more in the first place.
Yeah, man, that is such an intelligent point. I love it. But it is so true. I don't know where it's just you charge whatever you can, but just to go back to an earlier point, you have to be able to sell that. And the confidence side of it is so huge. Like so much that goes into that. But one is that doing this test thing where you're sending out a higher price to people who on dates you've already booked. So you can't book it, but you get to know whether people would be interested in that price and prepared to at least speak to you at that price. Because, and the other thing is, I know the other thing I hear people say sometimes is I can't charge X pounds because I would never pay that for wedding photography. And you have to kind of disconnect yourself sometimes as well and realize that you're not selling to yourself. Mm-hmm. You're selling to a market or a different type of person than yourself. And yeah, maybe you wouldn't pay £3,000, £4,000, £5,000 for wedding photography, but there is a market who will. But you have to be able to, if somebody says to you, how much do you charge? You have to be able to confidently reply £5,000 or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. You can't apologetically go, well, I charge that £5,000, but I'm happy to just, as soon as you start with that apologetic tone in your voice about your price, then you've lost.
I used to be like that, that. Yeah. Because that's why I love how because before I used to do in-person sales or whatever, right? So then they would come and see me, and then I'd have to say the price in front of them, and I'd just be looking down going, yeah, it's this much. And then but then I realized, I'm just gonna have to send a PDF because I hate talking about money.
yeah.
Or what I charge. So now even with the pricing guide, it's so much better because they already know. So then I don't need to ask you again. And then if they're talking to you, then yeah, you're already on a winning.
Yeah. Like you say, I think that sales skill, being able to sell it, however you sell it, in person, online, on Skype, on a brochure, through a website, however you sell what you're selling, that is just, that is really key. And, it's interesting. So we got some quotes for some new windows in our house the other week. So we literally had the classic double glazing salesman. We've had loads of them coming round. And I think what we all need to do in our businesses now is get our own, I need to outsource my sales. I think I'm going to get a double glazing salesman because, the guy, you find something online and it looks kind of cool. The guy that comes around is the salesman and he just sells you it. His skill, his one job in life is to sell shit to you. Whereas when the guy comes to actually to fit the windows or take the pictures, he's the craftsman and he's the guy that's really good at doing this stuff, but he hasn't sold me it. He just comes and skillfully fits the windows. It's the salesperson that's kind of made me cough up all the cash for it, Whereas the hard thing is as sole traders or as little business owners is that we have to do all that, right? We have to be skilled. So I'm going to go and get myself a double glazing salesman.
But it was the same it was exactly the same when we went with wardrobes as well. We went with the guy that actually charged the most because the sales guy was just that much better.
Yeah, right.
And I was just like, mate, you just seem worth it. I felt, actually, you know what it was? It was just I felt safe and confident that they're going to do a great job, and
exactly.
And that's why I went with them. And
some random guy fit the wardrobes, right?
Yeah, but that's I think that's what people have to portray. When you're doing the sales, be like you said, I think you have to have a little bit of arrogance, be super confident and be I'm going to do an amazing job for you, but I charge this much. There might be others that charge less than that. There might be others that charge more, but I know that, I'm going to deliver this, this, and this. You've seen my work. You've seen everything, laid out clearly. So it's really your decision, if that makes sense. And if you're confident, good enough, and they like your personality and all the other things that go with it, then yeah, you can justify and charge what you're charging.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the thing. The unit hit the nail on the head there. In that the point of a sales pitch is to instill that trust and that confidence in your product and business over and above the next guy. But that's such a funny analogy about the double. I thought it was going to be an amusing joke at first about the double glazing thing, but it's so true. We can't all go out and hire a sales manager and a whatever and just solely be the craftsman. As great as that would be, you have to learn those skills. And if you're going to run a sole trader business, you have to be able to do that more and more so these days than ever.
Plenty to teach people on the next podcast.
Yeah.
Dude, I surprised myself in that podcast. I came out with this. I made 2 strong analogy stroke points that I'm impressed with. They are going in my brochure stroke. Don't know where else.
Okay, go and do that. I'm going to do the same. When you do it, can you send me over the word? I'm going to do the same.
Go for it.
All right. See you next week, boys.
Okay, amigos. Good times. Take it easy.
1, 2, 3. Listen.
You can listen to previous episodes of the DotCast anywhere people normally listen to podcasts, and you can find out more about NineDots membership and the NineDots gathering at nine-dots.co.